Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Although this market cycle is dragging out a lot longer than most people were hoping or expecting, it still is the case, according to many chart analysts, that we're still sitting pretty. In fact, one XRP chart analyst noted that even to this point, despite all of the negative sentiment out there, the chart structure of XRP looks like it's poised for an identical breakout, and that's a quote, identical breakout to what we saw in 2017, which could lead, if history's rhyme with itself, to prices for XRP above the $15 level. Now, I don't myself make price predictions for anything. XRP, Bitcoin, doesn't matter what the coin is, nothing. I admit I don't know what's going to happen in the short term also, but my conviction has never been stronger that XRP, just let enough time pass, that mofo is going on a chart up and to the right. The fundamentals for XRP have never been stronger. I also do not believe that we're in a bear market or about to enter bear market. I think it's very clear that if you look at the backbone of what causes markets to rise and fall, which is of course global liquidity, look, we're around all-time highs right now, and every indication on the planet says, hey, not just are we at all-time highs, but it's going to increase, and it's going to increase at an exponential rate. What do you think that means for risk on assets like stocks and crypto, and specifically XRP, which has just been one of the best performers in the last 12, 13 months? I don't know about you folks, but I just do not think it's time to be a negative Nancy about all this stuff. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, as I record this video, it is 7 p.m. on the dot Central Time, Saturday, December 6, 2025. XRP is $2.03. Bitcoin at $89,563. So not that much excitement in terms of volatility, mostly moving sideways over the last 24 hours. But we cannot and we will not stay here for long. In fact, I will not be surprised if in this upcoming week we see lots of volatility, especially given what's happening the FOMC. I mean, every time there's an FOMC day, which is coming up here, you see volatility. Now, it's always a question mark of to what degree, and hopefully ultimately you break to the upside here. But the market's absolutely expecting that you're going to get another rate cut. So even if there is a short-term sell the news, or who knows, I mean, I understand, like Jerome Powell, he can come out and say stupid things with his stupid little face hole, the syllables falling out like vomit. I understand that, and maybe there's something unexpected. Even if you do get the rate cut, it could cause the market to fall. I understand that. But if you don't get something like that, and you do get the rate cut, even if it's just 25 basis points, even if there's a little volatility to the downside, or even if some of it's like sell the news, quote unquote, that still is what the market wants. It is ultimately a good thing for people who own financial assets. Very obviously it is. So I think we can absolutely expect that to happen this week. I mean, the odds favor that substantially. And that's just one more thing. But all that to say, we're going to have some amount of volatility this week, almost certainly. And by the way, as far as ETFs, I wanted to mention this, and I'll highlight one thing in a minute or two about XRP ETFs also. But there's this post a couple days ago from the Kabasi letter. They were highlighting that crypto ETFs, despite recent sell-offs, and there have been some massive sell-offs, not for XRP, obviously. XRP sitting pretty, but for Bitcoin specifically. And they noted some stats, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into it. But that was reposted by the Nijin Tropic account, and this account is run by the co-founders of Glassnode and Swissblock. Those are both on-chain analytics firms. And they wrote, slowly, then all at once. Midterm outlook is looking better and better. Short term, we need to overcome $94,000 to $95,000, a major pivot level to decrease chances of another sweep of the lows at $82,000 to $84,000 before moving higher. FOMC dovish or hawkish tone will set the stage for the probabilities of the end of year and January melt up. And so this is in line with what I keep seeing from all sorts of analysts. There's at least a possibility, even if there's not strong conviction from these analysts that it's going to happen, there's a possibility you could see a deeper pullback. So even if it goes to $82,000 to $84,000, if Bitcoin does, that means that we've already seen the bottom, though. The bottom was around $80,000. Pullbacks can happen, but the expectation is that this is not something that breaks the higher time frame structure. And then, as he cited right here, January melt up regardless. So there's still a possibility we can end the month of December strong. But even if not, structurally, this is what I keep seeing from the analysts that I follow, almost all of them, we're still actually poised to see some pretty incredible things. There's also this post from chart analyst Tech Dev, and he's beating the same drum here, but he posted this just this morning. He says, every cycle it's been the same. Business cycle reverses, small cap stocks breakout, altcoins soar. The business cycle is reversing, and small cap stocks are breaking out. Okay, now he shared a ton of posts recently on that topic, so I don't want to reiterate all of that, but that is true. What I did find particularly interesting about this is that he's characterizing small cap stocks as breaking out, and that's actually the second analyst in 2 days that has characterized small cap stocks, so specifically if you're looking at the Russell 2000, as breaking out. And, really we're just hovering around the all-time high, so I was kind of surprised to see that characterization. But if you look at the 1 month chart, maybe this is why they're characterizing it that way, you can see that there was a bottom on November 20th around 2,300, and now we're over 2,500. So you can see we have come up, and this just goes up to, of course, Friday, because traditional finance is antiquated. You're not allowed to trade anytime you want. It has to be during business hours, Monday through Friday. It's not always going to be like that. Stocks eventually, they're going to be 24/7, 365. It's just stupid that they still haven't caught up, even though crypto markets do it. It's obviously possible. But I digress. So anyway, maybe that's part of the reason, because that has been a fair jump here, and maybe they perceive that as breaking out here. And it has been trending up. Like if you look at the 6 month chart even for the Russell 2000, yeah, it's obviously been trending up. And the reason that matters is these are perceived as more risky than, of course, large cap stocks. So much more risky than if you're looking at the S&P 500. And so as the risk on appetite increases, you do see that appetite flows into the cryptocurrency asset class, which on the whole is perceived as more risky. But specifically for alts, yeah, that is when you see alt season finally occur. So it does seem to look like things are lining up the way you'd want, especially as Tech Dev put it. The business cycle looks like it's reversing. Small cap stocks still poised. It looks like everything's actually still fine, if history is to rhyme with itself, and it's just the case that the market cycle is dragging out farther because we're no longer in a 4-year cycle, we're in a 5-year cycle. That would all make sense. There's also this post from chart analyst Melius, and he's highlighting IWM. That is the ticker symbol for I think it's BlackRock, ETF that tracks the Russell 2000. So it effectively is the Russell 2000 chart. And so anyway, here's what Melius had to say. So we're looking at small cap stocks here again. He says, Bitcoin and alts never in their history experienced a bear market after IWM. So again, that's effectively the Russell 2000, because the Russell 2000 is the index. IWM is the ETF that tracks it. So it says, again, never experienced a bear market after IWM was breaking on new highs. So, which is again where we are. I know it's not like a full-fledged breakout just yet, but there's actually, that would be the third analyst that's characterizing as breaking out, I suppose. But it says never. If you are bearish here, despite higher time frame structure on Bitcoin remaining bullish, I get it, as some important levels were lost as well as EMAs. But keep in mind that this cycle is different and is not ending in the same way as previous ones. And once again, higher time frame structure is remaining intact. Okay, let me pause here to just say a couple things. As I keep insisting, and it's very obviously true, all these metrics that chart analysts are looking at, they are downstream from liquidity. Liquidity ultimately, because that's the higher time frame queue, it will ultimately break your chart. If you're not looking at it and it does something that you're unaware it's doing, it will break your freaking charts. It's just going to do that. So, and also when he says that this is different, well, it depends on what you mean. The core things that result in the cycle, those things are not different. If you're talking about the length of time, fine, that's different, but that's not, the number doesn't matter. If it's 4 years or 5 years, it doesn't matter. What matters is the thing that causes the time frame to do its thing, is that thing broken? Is that different? And the answer is no, it's not broken, it's not different. It's global liquidity ultimately, and then everything else falls into place. And that has to do, that has to do with specifically with debt refinancing, switching from on average 4 years to on average 5 years. That is what's happening here. But he says here, so cycle is extending into 2026 and you can't do anything about it. Meanwhile, IWM is heating the engines for a breakout on new highs. Lower time frame may stay noisy for some time, but higher time frame direction is clear, and I believe Bitcoin and alts do make new highs in 2026. So he's ultimately thinking much, much higher ultimately. Then you had this from Crypto Michael. He said, Bitcoin capitulation at record levels. This typically marks bottoms. Most are now sidelined. Disbelief suit. And so he's in the camp of Bitcoin did bottom at $80,000, and this capitulation metric, when it signals like this, that's a good thing if you want the number to go up. It's just the data. Then we had this from chart analyst Matthew Hyland. He says, if Ethereum confirms this in about 27 hours, it's an ETH BTC chart, signaling at least holding the level if not breaking up, Bitcoin will likely break upward. Thus, Bitcoin dominance will break down as there is no bullish path due to Ethereum. Is it possible Ethereum knows something is coming heading into a week where there is an FOMC and unemployment data release? Well, I don't buy that last part, but he's one of many analysts that I've seen pointing out that ETH BTC is looking strong. And if you're an XRP holder, that matters because historically, anyway, Ethereum breaks first and then XRP ultimately follows. Nothing's broken here. That's another key takeaway. I keep seeing from all of these analysts that I follow, they're just not convinced we're in a bear market, and this all looks pretty samey. Most things do, actually. Also, as far as XRP ETFs, just wanted to point out, if you look at Friday, just yesterday, another day of inflows. We've never had a day of outflows in the history of XRP ETFs. Now, I know it's a short history. Eventually, there will be days where there are outflows, and then we'll just keep trending upward. But still, it's nice to see this. Every single day has been green. We are at a total of $897 million cumulative total net inflow. You'll love to see it. So this is happening at a time when people are bearish, when they're fearful. And unquestionably, this is the smart money. These are institutions on the whole that are making these purchases. Absolutely, that's what's happening right here. And I made videos going in depth as to why we can say with confidence that is indeed the case. Here's a post from ChartNerd. It says, XRP, it's pretty simple. Hold the weekly super trend, then we push to new all-time highs in early 2026. Lose the weekly super trend. We zoom out to the monthly super trend for support to rocket in later 2026. But either way, macro outlook is up. So there's yet another analyst who, by the way, he's still calling for XRP to peak upwards of $27. It's not what he says in this particular post, but he is consistently, even in very recent times, highlighting that. He is not wavering in that. So he's in the camp of, guys, no, we're not in a bear market. That's a stupid idea. That doesn't make sense. Things are still heading upward. Here's a post from chart analyst Javon Marks, XRP USD chart on your screen here. He says XRP's level of pursuit, after displaying a highly identical breakout to 2017, can be to and above the $15 levels. This means that there can be much more in the tank, such as another over 600% gain incoming. Okay, well, again, I don't make price predictions myself, but I got to tell you, if Raoul Pal and Julian Biddle's thesis is correct, and there are other analysts that believe it as well, that this cycle really is dragging into 2026 for all the reasons that I keep talking about on this channel. If that's the case, you're going to have a full-fledged alt season. And it would be, you just have to be a silly little goose to think that XRP is not going to go along with that. You silly goose. Of course it's going to go along with it. It would make no damn sense all up in this bitch to believe that the rest of the alt market goes, but then XRP's like, no, I had my fun leading, now I'm just going to sit on the sidelines here. No, folks, none of that makes sense. The whole market's going to go, and the cool thing is XRP is primed. It's got legal clarity. Fundamentals never stronger than before. Whales are positioning. There's so much evidence of that. That's what the smart money does. They get in before the big moves. They're absolutely anticipating this thing is going to break to the upside dramatically. And history tells us that XRP historically, per market cycle, gets one big burst, then it moves sideways, then it gets a second big burst. Is this time going to be different? I doubt it. I think it's probably going to move to the upside. Here's a post from chart analyst E. Greg Crypto. He says, XRP perspective matters. Same chart, different time frames. Totally different signals. Weekly support. Support holding bullish tone. And so what you can see is each one of these candles, this is it's 1 week. And if you look at the trend lines, he's like, okay, Looking pretty good, hanging out above there. But then if you switch it to this one right here, you can see it's falling below the trend line. That's the 5-day time frame. So you can see right there, 5-day time frame, bearish candle, bearish pressure visible. And so he says, always zoom out. The bigger picture tells the real story. And I think that's a fair thing to point out, because all too frequently people get caught up in the minutia, especially if you get in even shorter time frames. It just eventually gets into silly nonsense. Like look, go to like a 1-minute time frame. It becomes silly nonsense. At some point it becomes useless. But if you do look at the overall trend, you can see things are not disastrous here. That's why I always say it always makes sense to zoom out here. And so in this case, he's just zoomed out a little bit more, 5-day versus 1 week. But even that makes a difference. Big picture, nothing is broken here. Full steam ahead, my friends. or if not full steam yet, soon full steam. Like I really just, I do not believe we're breaking down. It would just be silly. Like the idea that we're going to keep moving up in terms of global liquidity and that's not going to reach risk on assets if you just zoom out a bit, that's a silly concept to me. That makes no sense. That would be then this time's different. Money sloshed around everywhere, all willy-nilly. And it's going to, where is it going to? If it's not going to the risk on assets, liquidity at an all-time high, it's got to be allocated somewhere. Where is it going to? Beanie Babies? Where's it going? Tell me where it's got to go somewhere. You think it's just going to sit in cash? Like, what do you think is happening here? I'm telling you, when the system's flush with cash, people have an increased appetite for risk. When that happens, risk on assets thrive. Crypto is risk on. Therefore, number go up. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.